There's a war going on. And it's a war between the flesh of man and the Spirit of God. Though the power of the flesh is broken, the flesh is not totally annihilated at conversion. Paul speaks of a state of humanity that he calls the flesh. And we've already noticed that Luther said that the great triad of enemies for the Christian growth contain the world, the flesh, and the devil. Now, when we're talking about the flesh, I want us to understand that when the Bible talks about the struggle that we go through with the flesh, it is not simply talking about the body. That the struggle between the flesh and the spirit cannot be equated with a struggle between the body and the soul, or the body and the mind. But rather, what the New Testament is talking about when it talks about this fierce struggle that goes on in the Christian life between the flesh and the spirit is the struggle between the power of sin in our natural fallen humanity against the influence of God the Holy Spirit in our lives. So that the whole struggle and process of sanctification involves what Paul calls warfare. There's a war going on. And it's a war between the flesh of man and the Spirit of God. Now, I get so irritated when I hear preachers stand up and say, come to Jesus and all your problems will be over. Because that's just simply a lie. My life didn't get complicated until I became a Christian. Before I was a Christian, though I was not happy, I had a relative degree of peace. I knew that I was doing things that I ought not to be doing. I had not totally annihilated my conscience, but I was on the way to it. By repeating certain actions, you can so sear the conscience and put calluses upon the soul that where you once perhaps felt a little twinge of guilt, now you can do these things through repetition that don't bother you anymore, and you experience what the Bible calls hard-heartedness. But when I came to Christ, I found a new conscience. And so now things that I didn't worry about before became matters of ethical concern. And life was complicated. And wouldn't it have been nice if I would say, well, what I did when I was converted was I traded in the flesh, bought into the Spirit, and lived happily ever after. That's the struggle of sanctification. Though the power of the flesh is broken, and the power of the flesh is now subordinate to the Spirit to a very real measure in regeneration, the flesh, ladies and gentlemen, is not totally annihilated at conversion. The war goes on.
Thanks for listening to Ultimately with R.C. Sproul. This is a podcast from Ligonier Ministries. For more information about Ligonier and to discover thousands of free resources to help you grow in your Christian faith, visit ligonier.org.